Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Enjoy Karo Yaar podcast. I'm your host, Ashish Bhatia, and today I'm joined by a very special guest, Hassaan Khan. Make some noise.
Thank you for having me.
Can you please introduce yourself?
So my name is Hassan. I'm currently a student therapist, completing my master's in counseling. So I'm doing my internship right now. Excited for that. I just started a few weeks ago. I also currently work as a digital marketing officer as my full-time job, but kind of going to transition out of that once I finish my internship. And yeah, like I've been passionate about mental health for a long time since high school, just making it more accessible and normalized.
Yeah, and thank you for coming on today, and we really appreciate it. I know that you're very, very passionate about this mental health space. That's why you're on our podcast today, and we're very glad that you're here. Can you first share about how you got into this journey, your educational journey, and or first of all, how you were inspired to get into this space?
Yeah, so I guess like I mentioned, it's kind of starts from high school. So I went through my own mental health issues, so a lot of social anxiety and some depression, and I didn't really know what to do about it. Like I went to my family doctor and they referred me to some program, but I didn't end up going at the time because of stigma. Like I was afraid of what people might think of me if I go. So there's a lot of stigma on myself. I was able to overcome the social anxiety by just, putting myself out there, like putting myself in awkward and new situations. But I know that that might not be the case for a lot of people. And at the same time, I noticed that a lot of my friends, especially guy friends, they also didn't know how to talk about their problems, about their emotions, much less get help for them. So I just wanted to make it, I guess, my life goal to make whether it's therapy or other sources of support just more accessible and more normalized, and especially for marginalized communities and stigmatized communities, like, for example, South Asian culture, men.
And were you really open about your mental health sort of struggles with your family early on?
So like I told them about the social anxiety, but like they also didn't really know what to do about it. I also just kind of didn't really talk about it much. Like I brought it up once and never again. So it's kind of like a double-ended thing where it's I didn't bring it up, they also didn't bring it up. So it's just like something that gets swept under the rug. Um, Even if it does get brought up, it just gets swept under the rug so that it's an awkward conversation that no one wants to have.
Yeah, it's the most difficult conversation to have with your family, when you're struggling. And they
Yeah.
say, what can we do to help? But, sometimes they don't know what to do, and they could make the situation worse. And that's why you're like, should I tell them? Should I not tell them?
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
and how did that sort of inspire you to be like, I want to be in this space?
Like I just wanted to have like not have other people go through the same problems that I did or face the same barriers to getting help as I did. And I noticed that as time goes on, like therapy and getting help and just mental health in general has become more normalized and a topic. So it is becoming better, but I still feel like there's still a lot of barriers to certain demographics getting help. So I wanted to make sure that culture doesn't get in the way of getting help or anything like that.
And sort of what was your educational process into getting into this space? So what did you start off with?
Well, I went to undergrad for psychology and biology, hoping to then go into grad school for becoming a counselor. After completing my undergrad, I didn't get to grad school at the time, so I had to do a bit of a career switch, which is why I'm working in digital marketing right now, and I have been since 2021. But then I just felt like it wasn't as fulfilling as I wanted to do. Um, like I wanted to be face to face with someone, helping them directly. And with digital marketing, it's a lot of like, virtual like interaction. You're making social media posts, so you don't really know the influence you're having. So in 2023, I decided to go back into school, um, and do my master's, do it online while I'm working, just because I want to be able to do a job that I can be passionate about and have satisfaction from, which is what I'm doing now.
And how long have you sort of been on this sort of career path for?
For therapy, like I've been in school since January of 2024. So I'll be done in 2026 of April, so next year. So it's been, yeah, about a year and a half, almost 2 years, and it's been exciting and nervous as well.
Oh, well, you know what they say, like if it makes you happy, that's what you should pursue. Make your passion your career. And so I'm glad that you're doing that. And so far in your sort of journey, has there any been like what has been your biggest challenge so far in your career?
Probably it's like a mental thing of like doubting myself or of whether I'll be able to make a difference, especially because of all the stigmas. Like, is my work going to be able to counteract the stigmas? Are they going to be too strong, or are these like messages that they have, are they like they're spread across generations? So I feel like I won't be able to like undo that in a sense. I've met some resistance from people, like especially South Asian culture. But usually, whenever I tell people I'm becoming a therapist, even South Asians, like they're pretty supportive now. Like they are like, oh, like we really need that. So that has kept me going and kept me motivated.
Um, um, sort of, I guess you've already outlined your sort of the self-doubt portion, but let's look at the opposite side of that. And how do you define success for yourself, and what has changed over time in terms of that?
Yeah. I used to think it was all about grades and money, which is like in high school, I guess everyone really thinks about just money, and maybe not the grades, but I was high achieving, so I did really value the grades.
Yeah.
That's actually what I guess South Asian culture tells you anyways, just focus on getting money, so become a doctor, lawyer, or engineer. But now my definition is a little bit more of like whether what I'm doing is making me feel fulfilled, which is what made me do the career switch anyways. So it's all about, I guess, leaving a difference, making a difference to the world, leaving a positive impact on it. And my life motto, like right now, is to leave people better than I found them, which kind of goes into that definition of success of just even if it's a like, brief encounter with someone, I just want to leave them with something that they benefited from.
And so far, do you have a sort of mentor or someone who's influenced you greatly?
Yeah, career-wise, I guess my biggest influences have been like classmates and other peers, other therapists. They validated my concerns, my worries about my future as a therapist. Especially I'm a bit of perfectionist, so I often worry that I won't be able to help every single perfect person perfectly. But they've taught me that I just need to show up, be curious, be humble, and that's all anyone can really ask. And oftentimes people just need a listening ear more than anything. But I also had mentors in terms of life. Like I don't have like one mentor that I look up to like that. But I like to take the positive aspects of everyone and kind of like learn from them and see how I can incorporate that into my own life.
And is there any like project or accomplishment? I know you've talked about we can briefly talk about Into His Mind as well. And is that like the most meaningful thing you've done so far or
Yeah, I think I'm pretty proud of that. Just for some background, Into His Mind is a page that I started. I think it's been 4 years now, about men's mental health and just kind of getting the awareness out there, creating some content about dispelling the stigmas, how just normalizing that men do go through like mental health problems as well. So that's an Instagram page. And so I think I'm pretty proud of that. I've gotten a pretty good following. Even for not taking it super seriously, it's just more of a passion project for me. But just even if I'm able to help one person and that cascades into helping other people, like I'm happy with that. So I think that's been really meaningful to me. Just being able to combine a little bit of my passion for mental health and also my digital marketing and using those skills there too.
yeah, that's really nice. And I'm glad that you're doing what you love. And I've also seen on your LinkedIn, your resume, I guess, that you've also been associated with CAMH as well. And so talk about how you got associated with them. And I've even seen you've done an interview with them as well, like a year ago, I believe, for Men's Mental Health Week, I believe it was. And so
Yeah,
talk
so
to
I
us about
did.
that experience.
Yeah, so I'm on their National Council of People with Lived Experience. So basically, this means like people who have experience with mental health issues, and they kind of inform a lot of their work. So I got involved with that, I think a year and a half ago now. And as part of that, they do some features and get feedback from some of these people. So for Men's Mental Health Month, or week, sorry, they got they wrote an article about me, just kind of talking about my own experiences, similar to what we're doing now here. So I shared about my backstory, my passion for getting for becoming a therapist, and I think that was very validating, just to be recognized and be um, for such a big organization, be a public kind of figure in a sense.
And that's really cool. I mean, do you believe in what CAMH is doing? Could they be doing more, or they're doing just enough for the cause right now?
I think they're doing a lot. And maybe not specifically men's mental health, but for mental health in general, they are doing a lot. I think they're the biggest like organization for mental health advocacy in Canada. So I think they are doing a lot of good work, and that's why I'm staying with them and just being on their council.
And in this space, there's other also we wouldn't really say competitors, but we would say I guess partners. I guess there's I think Jack.org. There's Kids Helpline, and it's important to know that they're all have the same goal, and there's no competition in the space. They all have the same goal in mind to help each other and help the community be more vocal about this issue and more sort of and educate the people that this is a serious issue and we want them to help people and we should help each other as well. And so I guess that moving on from your I guess background, we're gonna go into more of the more mental health related questions. And so, well, I think we'll start that mental health is becoming more of a apparent issue. It's been becoming more openly discussed now because there is more awareness because of social media and all that. And so, what's your perspective on the current social mental health landscape in your industry and as a whole as well?
Yeah, I think it's definitely great that it's becoming more openly discussed. Like if I'm comparing my time in high school to now, and some of the people that I know in high school now, like they're a lot more aware of their problems. They're a lot more talkative about them, and yeah, just open, and it's becoming a more of a topic. They're able to share their stories without feeling shame. Like for the most part, there of course still are stories of shame. At the same time, though, you mentioned social media, so there's actually a lot of misinformation on social media about how, for example, certain mental illnesses present. So I think everyone needs to be careful of where they get their information from, and not sometimes people be self-diagnose, for example. So it is a good thing that it's coming more open, but it's just you got to be careful with misinformation.
And have you sort of experienced in since you've sort of mentioned that like you've and since high school you've sort of came across this mental health sort of stigma and these issues. Have you ever faced periods of burnout, anxiety? I know we talked self-doubt in your journey. And what does that feel like? And how are you dealing with it then and versus now?
Yeah, I mean, these are things I face all the time, like especially, for example, the self-doubt. Like doubt myself as a therapist a lot of the time, especially now just starting my internship or my practicum. Like there's a lot of feelings of imposter syndrome of like, do I fit in here? Like, am I going to become a good therapist? So there's a lot of self-doubt there. Um, yeah, I guess like just thinking about like what happens when I have real clients, awkward silences, or if I say the wrong thing, or if I don't know what to say next. Or what the client thinks of me. All these things come in. There's also a lot of compassion fatigue or burnout, which is like a big thing for therapists as well. Like I would say I'm someone who's very empathetic, and this career requires a lot more empathy as well. So just like I'm concerned that like, am I gonna have enough empathy to go around
Yeah.
in a sense? But things that have helped me have been like, for example, talking about it with my peers, and friends, even friends. Even if my friends don't really understand what it's like to be a therapist in training, like even just talking about my problems with them really helps. I also make sure to take the time for myself and my hobbies so that I'm not always talking about, or I'm not always thinking about the topics related to the source of the anxiety or burnout. So hobbies like sports and crafts and even video games, it's just a good distraction.
Do you always tend to sort of go on like distract your mind when you have these sort of thoughts, like go on a walk and stuff like that?
Yeah, like walking or even exercising, like they really help as well, just as a dopamine release and stress release.
And so do you think that like what are some like self-care or some mental wellness sort of practices that you've adapted in your mind to stay grounded, especially during those like highly stressful moments of pressure?
Yeah, it's a lot of small things for me. Like for example, I play volleyball as a sport. I like playing volleyball. It's a way to both like I guess some exercising, but also like spend time with friends, meet new people. I like hanging out with friends with no specific plans, just kind of like going with the flow. Spending time with my cats, like allowing myself to sleep in without guilt if I feel burnt out. But like just general theme across these is that I try to be grateful for like the small things in life that we often take for granted. I think that's just like gratefulness is very important when you are always stressed because you tend to like look at the negative side of things and make problems worse than they are. So just remaining with a positive mindset is really important here.
And do you think there are like let's moving on to I guess like mental health in general, but maybe to sort of specify maybe in our own sort of South Asian sort of community as well. Do you think there's like the stigma around our mental health in our field or our culture? And if yes, how do we sort of challenge that stigma? And how do we change the perceptions of people? Because there's definitely maybe sort of some an intergenerational sort of problem here. So how do we try to change that?
Yeah, there is definitely a stigma being in South Asian culture. So I guess double stigma for us being South Asian and men. So like there's so much pressure to not tell people your problems because you have to appear strong, or if it's like a taboo topic, you don't want to talk about it. Um, I guess the way to challenge it is for me, like I try to be as open as possible about my own experiences and just hoping that it's going to cause a ripple effect where others feel more open about sharing their own situations or problems because of me sharing them. And I do sometimes I do struggle to share my story, and like of course, I'm not perfect, so there's always those fears of like, am I gonna get judged for it, or that or they look at me differently? But as soon as I remind myself that like it's for the greater good, and that doing it might help, with the butterfly effect, maybe hundreds of other people, just thinking of it that way quickly gets rid of any of these like worries that I have.
And so I guess I know you didn't like so tell your family about these problems directly, but I guess now that you're actually working in this field and you're doing all these great things, how have they reacted to these accomplishments?
Yeah, I've been comparing myself to high school. I'm a lot more open with them as well. So I've been like they know I'm a therapist and they're supportive of it. And like they also say, it's very needed. They have a lot of their own relatives back home, especially who have gone through mental health issues, and they don't have the open environment that we maybe have in Canada, or more Western spaces. So they recognize the need that we have for therapists and just mental health stigmas in general. So they're very supportive and appreciative.
Well, my next question was going to be, is there anybody around you, like your family members have been more open about talking about mental health, but you've already answered that, so that's great. And so I guess now we can move on to another question that sort of it's on everybody's mind, really, I guess all the time, but it's sort of how to balance the ambition, the productivity, and maintaining your mental health at the same time, because many people struggle to do that, and you often sort of uh, put aside your own mental well-being to pursue those your dreams of yours.
Yeah, like it's definitely difficult to maintain your own mental health, especially when you want to get results right away. Like I want to be a therapist yesterday, but I know that it's a process and that I don't want to burn myself out. Um, I guess how I deal with it is just like reminding myself that if I'm running on empty, like I have nothing else to give to other people. And going back to my like my life goal or my life motto of like desire to help others, it keeps me in check because I can't achieve my life goal of helping others if I am burnt out. So yeah, taking things one step at a time, like appreciating the process, similar to what you said in your intro, just appreciating the process, taking it one step at a time really helps.
And sort of, um, I guess you've already answered. My next question was going to be what roles or connections, for whether it be friends, family, or mentors, have in playing a role in supporting your mental health. But we've already sort of talked about that. And so I guess I mean those are the questions I had written down. But now we can sort of have a more free-flowing conversation, I guess. And so I guess one of my questions that I had personally was in my sort of research that I've been doing, like going out and asking people about these things, is how they deal with their own stress in their own time, or is, in our, we're sort of in our young 20s, right? Life moves fast. You do get stressed out a lot. And a lot of people lean on alcohol, drugs. I was speaking to somebody and they said, they have trouble sleeping and now they actually go on, like they've gone to the doctor and they got these like meds to help them fall asleep. And so, how do you think we can sort of tackle this problem? Because these problems often start young and they get much worse. And what can we do to sort of prevent it from happening early on?
Yeah, I think there's definitely an over-reliance on like alcohol and drugs. And even if it's obviously medicine has its good use, but some people can rely on it like too much and just instead of instead of targeting the underlying problem, they might just, like use meds as like a band-aid solution. Um, yeah, and it does start young. It's about just like self-control. I think a lot of it is self-control of like I don't want to put in the work of I don't want to put in the work of fixing the problems, whatever it is. So I'm just going to use this quick solution, or it's not even a solution. It's just a distraction at some point, in a lot of cases. It's a tough problem to solve. I'm not really sure how to, I guess, solve it. It's just people have to, yeah, like think of the big picture, and be aware of what the consequences are of if they end up being addicted, what the consequences are, and how difficult it is to get out of that once, because it becomes a feedback loop where like you become less capable of dealing with your problems if you're always relying on alcohol and drugs. But because you're less capable, like if the problems do come up, you're more likely to use those substances to deal with it because you don't have any other, or you think you don't have any other options. So it's about developing the emotional intelligence, the problem solving skills early on, so that if something does come up, you're able to deal with it. And part of that, I think, for some people, that is going to therapy and just yeah, like the point of people think that therapy is only useful if you have a problem, like a specific problem, but oftentimes even just talking to someone, and the way you interact with a therapist, like you kind of learn how to critically think about the problems, how to think of them in a different way so that you're not like stuck in these feedback loops. And yeah, you're equipped with better coping skills. So at the end of the day, I would suggest everyone gets into therapy.
So you recommend therapy for everybody?
I would say yes. Like some people, there are of course some situations where maybe therapy not useful, but I think for the most part, therapy is useful for almost everyone.
And do you think therapy in terms of going to a professional or therapy in terms of like talking it out with a friend or a family member?
Both have their use. I think there's a lot of affordability issues with actual like professional therapy. So I get that like not everyone can afford it, and they may have to rely on just a friend or like a peer or whoever it is as support. So if you can afford it, like if you have insurance, for example, I would like definitely recommend just max out your insurance, like take advantage of as many sessions as you can, because it really does help having that professional, someone who's trained to help you with your problems. But like there's also a separate kind of like unique aspect of having a talking to a friend, because they know you, they know your whole life, they know like your quirks, they know your like your flaws kind of thing. So And they're with you a lot of the time sometimes, especially if you're spending so much time with this person. So it is definitely like a unique bond that you share with them.
And sort of how, in terms of your, I guess your opinion, professional opinion, what is like the balance between having sort of balancing physical and mental health being? Because, I know that sort of being more physically well sort of helps you be more mentally well. And does that work the opposite way as well?
Yeah, I think so. Like if you're more mentally well, you're able to have capacity to do more things in a day. And if you're someone who likes sports, like, and if you want to get into that, you feel like you have more capacity make time for the sports. Like if you're always burnt out, you're not going to have any motivation to go out and to go for a walk or go play basketball, whatever it is. So it definitely works both ways. There's no like I guess right balance. It just depends on you and how much time you want to spend in a day on both of those things. But yeah, it definitely is this feedback loop of one helps the other. So they're both equally important, I would say.
And sort of, I guess, we're talking about more of a scientific approach to dealing with mental health. But what about sort of spreading awareness through, I guess, not just like a podcast, but maybe film and short film? Do you think we should be investing more in that as well?
Yeah, like I think people like will consume a variety of media. So there's been a lot of like recent movies about mental health concerns. A recent one that I can think of, and that might resonate with the audience's adolescence. So just about a young boy who goes through just common experiences that a young boy will go through and how that takes a toll on his mental health. So and it was a very big movie. So clearly there's a demand for it. And I think yeah, there should be definitely a lot of various media that portrays mental illness, mental health issues, not just for men but in general as well.
And I think there's I don't know if you know in the South Asian community SOCH mental health SOCH, but
I haven't I haven't heard of it.
they do they've been around for like a few years now. I think a decade or so, and they do for South Asian community they do not just like physical events like seminars as with professionals and whatnot, but they made like short films as well, particularly more so focusing like on various like South Asian languages and also like the more immigrant sort of aspect of it. Obviously like right now there's a huge like debate or I guess controversy around immigrants and that, but they also go through their own mental health struggle as well. And I think it's like
Yeah.
important to recognize as well. And I think that social media is also ruining that sort of perception, I guess. It's making mental health better, but worse at the same time, if you know what I mean. Because as things get better, the hate also gets the comment sections, is what kind of gets people. And so what are your thoughts on that? Like how should we regulate social media?
Yeah, I know I've definitely seen firsthand those comments and like if like I don't really like internalize those messages, but I'm thinking from the point of view of someone who does, like if someone was to read those messages in the comments, like it definitely would have taken a toll on their mental health. I think yeah, social media is a double-edged sword where you can use it for good, but you can also use it for bad. And I think as a whole, it's been used for more harm than good. So like I mentioned before, even though there's a lot of information that you can get from social media about mental health and like about validating. The one good thing I will say is you get to validate your concerns. Like people share their experiences and you get to realize that you're not alone. But there's a lot of hate, especially on platforms like TikTok and Reels. I find that those video platforms just get a lot more hate. So it's all about monitoring your use, setting a screen time limit if you need to, and getting like more quote unquote real sources of support. So like talking to real people because like people can be online and be not scared to say anything. Like they will not say things that they actually wouldn't say in real life. So it's just all about like maybe shifting your time to from social media to in person, or even if it's like through voice, like, maybe you have like online friends. So just talking to them instead.
And I know I think that like even myself, like I used to spend a lot of time on social media as well, and it's kind of draining for your mental health. You're kind of just wasting time there a lot, and it's kind of sort of wasting your time in a way. You can be productive in more other ways, and I know you can set a screen time as well, and but I know it's very easy to just bypass and be like, okay, I
Yeah.
want more to end it for the day. And I think, but people don't realize, but there's apps to sort of block you from actually accessing those apps. Like I can't remember the name of the app on the top of my head, but it was like when every time I opened up Instagram or something, it would just block the app and say, "Here's take 20 seconds just to breathe." And then it was kind of like, "Do you really want to go back?" And I'd
Yeah, I've
reflect
seen
quickly and
those.
be like, "I don't want to." And I think people don't realize that's also a sort of a mental health app as well, and it kind of helps as well. And
Yeah.
so, I sort of encourage people as well to kind of use those kind of apps as well. You can install, I guess they're just blockers, but they do a lot. And I guess like, do you have any questions for us as well, like, and how we can sort of navigate our success in this space, especially since we're starting out our journey quite recently?
Yeah, I guess no questions, but just a maybe a bit of feedback, like, or maybe try to lean on like you're doing now, like real stories, like real people's experiences, because that really does resonate with people. So, like, like it's good. I like that you're, doing the podcast, like interviewing, finding people who have lived experience and getting their stories.
And obviously like I want to sort of do maybe a either a bi-weekly or one episode a month with a guest. But even if I don't have a guest, do a solo podcast, maybe sort of talk about maybe do like a whole story type of podcast based on somebody's a famous person who's gone through an athlete or some business person who's gone through some mental health sort of process. And do you think that would work?
Yeah, I think that works too. Like it's still a story. Obviously maybe the person not in the room right with you, but it's still analyzing a story, and I think that would still resonate with people.
And I've talked to a few people in this industry. Some of my friends are social workers as well. They work at these sort of mental health sort of companies, and they say this industry, as much as of how important it is like severely underfunded, and it needs much, much more funding. And so, how can we raise more awareness for people to actually donate for these causes?
A lot of it just goes back to showing the real impact that these stigmas have on people. So even if you're like within telling your story, you have to be vulnerable and say exactly like maybe what your lowest point was. So, like there's bit of like a bit of iffiness with like using your struggles as like a way to get donations, but the reality is that people will really like will donate if they see the reality of the struggle and how deeply it affects people. So I guess that's my feedback there.
Because
Just
how people sort of say, oh, this person is putting on a facade, they're putting on a show, but really it's like, why would I want to help a person that that's struggling? But it's also like, um, the whole point is you're not going to get 100% of people to obviously towards your cause, right? Even if you get a small percentage, that's much
yeah.
better than nothing. And I think that's what sort of scares people, I guess. Like even for myself as well, when sometimes I'm in my room and I'm like, I really need to talk to somebody. And always I just phone a friend and, just hash things out. And, they give reassurance, they give advice, and I'm glad that there's someone that's able to reach out. And I think that more people should try to obviously do that. And I think you would also agree that there's nothing wrong with being vocal about your own struggle.
Yeah.
There's a problem with obviously like making it sort of uh like dramatizing it, but when it's serious, it is serious, and sort of it's important that people also, obviously that human empathy, that human touch is what's needed. And so, do you think what's next for you after this? Like, where are you going on? Like, do you have a bigger goal in mind?
Yeah, so I mean, beyond like my therapy practice and developing that, like I do eventually, of course, want to become my own independent private practice therapist, but I also do want to do on the side like a lot of advocacy work and educational work on men's mental health, and especially like I think where a lot of these problems might start is like high school, and maybe even middle school. So like those early years, I do want to do some educational like outreach and some programs for kids, especially boys, so that they don't grow up with starting up with like negative messages or just, like kind of getting rid of the stigmas early on, so that their life ahead is a lot better. So that's kind of like a side gig that I do want to do.
And is there like, is there an appropriate age, do you think, that sort of we should start educating people about this?
I mean, I think you can do as early as like elementary years. It's just like you just adjust the content a little bit because obviously like if when you're in grade one and two, you're not gonna know very complex topics like depression, so you don't really need to tell them about depression. But like you can tell them about, oh, I'm happy, I'm sad, like it's okay to feel sad. They know what sad is, of course. And then as they grow or as they progress, like you just educate them a little bit more about like what stigma is or what like specifically depression is or what you can do to seek help. Again, like maybe you don't encourage like you don't need to tell directly to grade six student to get go therapy, but yeah, like you can tell them, oh, see, talk to a friend or something like that. So it's just about adjusting like, your content to the age, but I don't think there's any like appropriate age to
Yeah, I
start.
think the reason that I asked is because I think when you're younger, you don't really think about these things.
Yeah,
You're just in your own world, you're happy, right? You get your toys, you get your friends, right? You get to eat food and whatnot. And but slowly as you sort of get older, you get exposed, especially now because of where we are with the internet, you get exposed to more various topics that could alter your mindset for
yeah,
better or for worse. And like uh I'm not like scientist or anything, and I'm not trying to make like a claim or anything, but these problems do start very young, right? The signs will show later, but the signs are they're there, but we just don't realize it.
yeah.
And so these are underlying problems. So I think it's better to tackle it on earlier on. And so do you share the same view? Or
Yeah, I think it definitely start young, and it even starts from families, like how what the messages they tell their kids. So obviously you can't really change directly that what families are telling their kids, but you can also educate the families on, especially South Asian families who have like that intergenerational messages that they receive, like maybe breaking that link early on so that they don't pass the messages on to their kids.
well, I think that's all I have really for today. I want to thank you for coming on to our very like first episode of this podcast. Being our first guest, so you'll always be the special one. Uh,
So yeah,
and I hope that you strive in what you're doing. I hope that as we slowly build, eventually, maybe we can work together one day as well. Yeah, maybe sort of when we do like an in-person event, maybe you can be there as a panelist or somebody who's helping out there.
of
And
course.
so it's great to have you on. Thank you for your insights. You're a very knowledgeable person. Thank you for responding actually to our message. I
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
saw the your page and I was like, this person's the one to have on our.
Yeah, no, it was really nice to be here. So thank you for having me.
All right. Thank you for listening to our podcast. Uh, if you want to follow us on our social medias, it's Enjoy Karo Yaar, ENJOY KAROYAAR underscore. That's our Instagram handle. And do you want to shout out your social medias, your page?
Sure. Yeah, you can follow Into His Mind on Instagram for more mental health content.
All right. Thank you guys. We'll be back next month with a brand new episode. And yeah, peace out.